It is Future Fest. Looking to the future, right? We started 30 years in the past, but the future keeps accelerating. So let's maybe look 20 years in the future for an equivalent leap. Arguably 5 years in the future might be equivalent to the past 30, but let's say 20. So the year 2035, what does the future look like as far as you can tell? What would you, 20 years. Yeah, 2035. Okay. Yeah, 20 years.
It's always really tricky to predict the future. I mean, some of it's pretty obvious, like computing power is going to be just crazy. And the big change is the cost of computing power. Not so much the sort of circuit density, sort of the Moore's law thing. But if you look at, say, what is the actual dollars per per instruction, and that is. I mean, that cost is dropping exponentially. I mean, if you think about it, like if you're making a computer, you're rearranging silicon and copper, so on a little chip. And once the capital cost of the development and the chip plant is paid for, the marginal cost of a chip is very, very tiny. So I think we'll see massively parallel computers. And computing power and storage being, as much as you want.
And it's interesting. I too start with that. Like, if I don't know what else to predict, but as a foundational thing, this seems like the safest starting, premise. But then, what does that ripple through to in fields like genetics and AI, which you mentioned, autonomous driving, space-related topics?
I mean, just ubiquitous computing everywhere. I think AI is going to be incredibly sophisticated in 20 years.
When does it first wake up?
It seems to be accelerating, and the tricky thing about predicting things when there's an exponential is that an exponential looks linear close up. That's right. But it's not linear. So and AI appears to be accelerating, from what I can see.
And do you look at autonomous driving and point AIs like the Siri-like functionality as your guidepost?
Well, I had sort of a debate about something like, is AI accelerating or not? And like he was saying, well, what's the y-axis? If it's accelerating, you got t on the x-axis, but what's the y-axis? And I said, well, I thought about that, and I think you could have a recursive y-axis, so that if at any point in time your predictions for AI are coming sooner or later, that actually would help define whether it's accelerating or not.
Whatever that axis was. So you might just look at the net change.
It's sort of a recursive axis. Like, so if in any given year, if you find your predictions are going further out or coming closer in, that actually, is one way to think of acceleration. Because otherwise, what's the qualitative or quantitative measure of AI?
I was saying, like, if a given technology is always 20 years in the future.
Yeah, if it's always 20 years in the future, it's like more logarithmic.
So does AI seem like it's one of the most fastly accelerating things that you're aware of?
Yes. And I can certainly see that with autonomous driving, where 3 years ago I thought it was 10 years away, and then 2 years ago I thought it was 5 years away. Now I think it's 3 years away or less than 3 years away.
Wow. So, and when you say away, like released to market, available for consumer adoption, as opposed to prototyping?
No, I mean like the technology works. There's a sort of second question as to when regulators would approve it.
Yeah.
But like,
good luck with that.
The technology works technology works as a general solution. So like, autonomous driving, like, basically works anywhere.
So it could be sooner for point things, highway only, or.
I mean, highway only, we're already in public beta with this at Tesla, so we'll be hopefully in the next several weeks releasing to all of the cars that have the autopilot hardware, which is all cars built in like roughly the last 12 months.
Wow. And so this seems like one of those things that once you've experienced it, the inevitability of it becomes more apparent. Kind of like the first time I sat in an electric vehicle, it's just so clear, and same with autonomous vehicles. Do you think that will help persuade public opinion? And like the regulatory question is an interesting one, because as technology continues to accelerate, human nature doesn't. And acceptance of change. I'm just not sure if there's, like, as we look out in the future, should we assume that no matter how fast something like Moore's Law accelerates, there's always the counterbalancing force of human nature and habit?
Yeah, I mean, I think, there's always going to be the sort of, there's always going to be human nature, and it's sort of difficult to predict. I think how that will affect things. But I mean, I'm not sure if I fully answer your question. So in terms of what I think 2025.
Oh yeah, please.
So for sure, ubiquitous computing, AI that's beyond anything like the public appreciates today. I think we'll have most of the new vehicles being produced being electric, and we'll probably have a supermajority of energy being produced being sustainable. So I think we're headed
Solar
towards a good
primarily
track.
in your mind?
Primarily solar, yeah. So I think those are sort of some good things. Like I think we'll be hopefully on a good path for sustainable energy. Sooner is always better, but I think by 2035, I think we'll be substantially like most of transport, most of new energy being produced will be sustainable.
Broadband everywhere?
Broadband everywhere, yeah.
Mars colony?
And hopefully a small base on Mars, or a small city on Mars in 20 years, yeah. I think,
City, did I hear?
Well, okay, fine, town, village. Hamlet.